Okay, y'all, welcome back to Finding Balance. Hope you took a lot of key points and a lot of good lessons from the Address Your Stress breakout. In actuality, Finding Balance is kind of a good follow-up with that Address Your Stress course because a lot of times whenever we do experience that level of stress, our lives typically, fall out of balance. So today, for this time period, we're going to discuss the journey toward finding balance. By balance, I mean our individual perception that kind of all activities that we do are compatible and promote growth in accordance with our current life priorities. Let me say that again. What I mean by balance is that um, our individual perceptions that all activities that we do are compatible and promote growth in accordance with our current life priorities. So each of us has a competing responsibilities in our lives that we're going to get more into, including work, family, friends, and social commitments, deployments. With so many obligations to balance, it can be easy to lose perspective and neglect ourselves. A lack of balance may be even more pronounced when we must assume more than our typical share of responsibility in a specific role. I'm sure some of you probably know what this means in your units, your squadrons, or your companies where you know things don't seem as balanced as they should, right? And you can see this also during deployment. So working towards balance across the different areas in our lives is important because it may help us to better meet our different needs, and it also may contribute to a greater overall well-being and life satisfaction. So in this class, we're going to complete a series of exercises with I'll go over a series of exercises with you. And again, I'm going to push that kind of back on Sergeant Hill to get you all some of the worksheets, and he can PDF those and email them out to those of you who are interested. I'm going to talk through those exercises, and hopefully you can take those, and these are really good exercises that you're going to be able to sit down and do with your families, your kids, even your teenagers, and you can do them as a unit, as a morale event. Um, but we're going to get into those areas where you can identify your personal responsibilities and obligations and recognize activities that brings you enjoyment. Then using a tool, we're going to use the wheel of life that we will evaluate personal satisfaction in 8 life categories, and this is huge, very huge, because I use this a lot in my therapy sessions. And we will further identify specific areas of opportunity to use goal setting to increase satisfaction. So I want you to keep this in mind, but I also kind of want you to kind of keep in the backdrop of your mindset is that idea too of addressing stress, kind of where we just came from. And I want you to kind of channel that into, okay, how do I find balance in the midst of these stressful situations? How do I find that balance? So I want to start out with by sharing just a little story with you uh, about just this idea of the importance of finding balance. There was a guy, there was this book I read. It was called Tyranny of the Urgent. Um, a really neat book, a very small book actually. And the whole point, the book was about this doctor who had a friend that he hadn't seen since medical school. They were very good friends when they were in medical school together. He received a letter one day. I know you said, well, a letter. This must have been before text messages came out or social media. I think it was. But he received a letter in the mail back when people still knew what that was. And and basically it was a request from his old college roommate, his old college friend to come visit him in the city that he was living in New York. And this doctor was, of course, traveling from Florida. And so he dropped everything that he was doing and he got in his car. He took a road trip, drove to New York, and just to spend some time with his friend and just see what was going on. He didn't know, what had come of his friend's life. He, vaguely, barely kept in touch during this time. And what he discovered when he met his friend was that his friend was dying of cancer. And one of the things that his friend asked him, he said, "Hey, John, of course, John felt, he didn't know, and he felt all of the feelings that would naturally come with, seeing someone experiencing, such a reality in their life." And But beyond that, his friend said, basically tell me about the good things that are happening in your life, John. And that's what his dying friend wanted him to say, or the friend with cancer said, tell me about the good things that have happened in your life. And of course, his friend John starts to rattle off, all of the business sales, the business things that were going on, and the other, some of his other business practices besides things that were happening at his medical practice. Starts to talk about, all of the records that his kids were setting in school academically. He just starts to really talk about all of these different things. And his friend, the one that was dying of cancer, said, "No, tell me about the good things, the important things. Those are all urgent things, but tell me about the important things in your life." And so, he and John couldn't really think about it. And so his friend said, "Tell me when the last time you went fishing with your kid." Or when was the last time you had a date night with your wife? Tell me about those things. Or tell me about, when you went to visit your parents, or when you went to, have family dinner, or to have a family game night. Tell me about those things. And I thought it was interesting that at the end of the man's life, or, facing a very terminal situation, that his view and his perspective on things are about balance. Are we living balanced lives that contribute to our overall well-being, or are we so caught up with urgent matters? You know, getting getting the deployments done, doing the jobs, and making sure that we're meeting all of our deadlines on our calendars, that we're forgetting that life, it encompasses a lot more than work. It encompasses a lot more than just making sure that we're doing our savings and meeting all of our financial obligations. All of those are very important, but there are other aspects of life too that are important. And so the book was basically kind of separating the tyranny of the urgent matters, and allowing us to focus our attention more on very important matters. So this class, I mean, it's an opportunity for you. I invite you guys to embrace the opportunity of evaluating your life, evaluating the balance in your life, and looking at different areas. So we're going to also look at setting goals to address other areas of life. So, like I said, here, I want you all to kind of think with me in terms of responsibility and obligations. And if I were to say to you, and if we were sitting in a classroom together, I would say, I want you to draw this triangle. And I'm no kidding. I would, if you all are wanting to participate, go get a sheet of paper and draw this triangle out right here. And on this triangle, I want you to list all of the things that you're responsible for, and all of the things that you are obligated to do. And I want you to really think through these things: responsibilities and obligations. And as you think about those, I want you to continue. So list your current responsibilities and obligations in the appropriate column. These are the must do's in your daily, like must do. I got to do this. If I don't do this, then this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. So must do's in your daily, weekly, or monthly routine. Some examples might include preparing meals for your family, cleaning the house, caring for your children, grocery shopping, working, performing military service, going to that 1 weekend a month thing we call drill, doing all of that good stuff. These are responsibilities and obligations. And so typically you would take about 3 or 4 minutes to complete this exercise. And then I want you to ask yourself, how difficult was it for you to list all of your responsibilities and obligations? Um, and most of you probably would find not difficult at all, because I already got this list created. It's in my phone. These are all things that I got to make sure that I get done. And in that narrative, in the story that I told you, these will all be urgent matters. Responsibilities and obligations are all those things that I consider to be, very urgent. Um, and so you only get a few minutes to think about your responsibilities, but how complete is your list? How much stuff can you just really put down here within a matter of minutes? You can pop them off just like that. So, and then ask yourself, is it surprising by the length of your list? So typically when I've done this in other trainings, there is a long list of responsibilities and obligations. And people are sometimes surprised as to, man, that is a lot of stuff. as I look at it and I see all of the different things that I'm doing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, that is a lot of stuff. So did your responsibility include time for yourself in that? And that's the next part of that list, is did it include time for yourself? And in the follow up with that exercise, pleasure and fun. So you're responsible for taking care of you. Maintaining personal well-being is typically a part of your life that you would neglect in the shuffle or the hustle and bustle of schedules, daily multiple demands, and the pressure to be constantly available via mobile phones, via devices such as smartphones. It may seem like our rapid pace never slows down, that we're always on the go. And if we go back a little bit to that address your stress and we kind of pull in some of those principles, when you have these stressful thoughts and you start to have that adrenaline rush in your body, that can kind of contribute to that inability to just to slow down from the urgent and focus on the important. To slow down from those things that are urgent, focus on the important. I was guilty of this one time. My son came home and he was like, "Dad, I want to show you this." He had a little art thing that he created in school, but I'm so busy with the hustle and bustle of scheduling is that I noticed it, but I didn't experience it with him. But I had to go back to him and say, "Hey, son, I apologize. Let me take a look at that. Tell me more about this, what you created." He had a whole story around it that I would have missed when I just kind of looked at, "Oh, that's great." Because I was so focused on the hustle and bustle that I was neglecting the important matters. It's also including making those feel connected around me. That's that pleasure and the fun part. So if you look at that handout one, which is this pretty much this handout under the column in the table, it lists things that make you feel good or recharge your energy. These are not necessarily activities you do on a regular basis. It could be anything that you enjoy. For example, you may enjoy painting, listening to music, playing sports, hunting or fishing. How much of that are you doing? That was the question that the man that was ill said to his friend. Don't tell me about the other list. Tell me about this list. I want to know this list because whenever we are facing or in situations where we can no longer experience life this way, these are the things that were important to him, things that he wanted to know about. Um, were these activities moral? If you after you complete this, I want ask yourself, was it difficult for you to list the things that you found pleasure or fun in? Um, are you currently what are you currently doing to regularly re-energize for yourselves? And how do your list compare? Is it one longer than the other? If so, which one is longer? And honestly, what I found in a lot of doing this several times is that, of course, the list of responsibilities were exponentially larger than the one of pleasure and fun. And most people be like, "What is pleasure and what is fun?" We have kids, or we have the business, or we're in the military, or we're going both ways. What is this list? And so very neat exercise just to kind of it can be a litmus test for kind of where we are with certain things. So sometimes you may find it difficult to lead a balanced life. All attention might be focused in one direction, especially in times of crisis, of during deployments. Remember those times of high stress, operational stress. When this time of intense focus passes, try to refocus your life so you can fulfill and enjoy roles and responsibility to the fullest. And yes, folks, the COVID operations, I've known several people that have responded to this operation. Um, this was a very challenging task emotionally, especially when you consider all that was happening around this. Unlike other deployments, this is one that was local. Some people deployed abroad, overseas, but you have the pressure of society to create a change or to do something else regarding this. You have the political influences and issues involving COVID. A lot of stressful things that you just had to kind of block out in order to maintain that mission. And so sometimes giving I'm at the epicenter of probably one of the world's worst crisis situation, it does bring about a great deal of stress and could create a sense of unbalance in our lives. But being able to use, some of the tools to refocus your life on, life so that you can fulfill and enjoy roles um, that are pleasurable and fun and and in different areas of our lives. How do the sides measure up? Right? Is my triangle, is my responsibilities and obligations completely outweighing my pleasures and my funds? Or is the urgent matters outweighing the important matters? It's a good question to ask yourself. Here's a really great tool that I use often. This is the Wheel of Life. And you can also get this from the Yellow Ribbon website where the worksheets are. One way we might divide our lives into the following 8 categories: work, career, health and fitness, family and home, finances, personal growth, social and cultural, spiritual and ethical, fun and recreation. Um, there's been a lot of studies around this wheel of life, and basically, folks, whenever people have come to therapy or have experienced a breakdown in life, it is typically in one of these areas. And the wheel of this page represents 3 general areas. It represents these general areas in our lives. For each category on the wheel, you know, there is something. It embraces all of who we are. So if you were to just draw like a human in the circle, it encompasses every aspect of their life. And when we're talking about refocusing our lives to find balance, maybe a deployment has kind of pulled away from certain areas. Hey, we're reservists and we're part-timers. So, whenever we're put on active duty status anytime, man, hoorah with the finances. Hey, we get it's more money, which is never an issue. We always can kind of use, more pay and, but look at what it might do to the family and home. A personal growth, it could help. Health and fitness, I know some of you, you deploy and you come back like 10 times bigger than what you were before you left, so the goal of deployment is to hit the gym like every single day, right? But it could be good for work center. Those things, in learning to kind of weigh how new situations in my life or experiences in my life affect my will and my sense of balance. So what you will do essentially with this wheel is like we will go through and we will look at each of these. So on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 on the outside rim being the highest and 0, of course, being at the center, mark your level of satisfaction on the lines for each category. If you were listening to me right now and you were kind of just thinking through this, or if you were high speed and you was gonna print out that wheel of life and post it up on your refrigerator so that you have a daily reminder of balance, 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 balance. Um, how would you rate these? Do you enjoy what you do, work and career? Do you feel like you're making a contribution to your community? Where is that on 0 to 10? Family and home. Are you happy with your home life? Are the relationships what you want, or are there areas that these relationships can be improved? And finances, is their standard of living what you want it to be? If you plan for your future, if you have children, have you planned for their education? Is that where you want it to be? Personal growth, are you achieving your personal desires in terms of education, self-development, and do you take time for yourself? Social and cultural, do you have friends who enrich and contribute to your sense of well-being? Um, That is so important. Am I engaging with my interests outside of my family and career, like sports and theater? Uh, I know if you're a Falcons fan, this area might be a little low since I'm in Georgia, so I struggle sometimes with this part of my social and cultural view. Hopefully, the Atlanta Braves, have changed that for Georgia. We'll see here soon, depending on how my Bulldogs do. Spiritual and ethical, is religion important to you? If so, are you content with the way you are practicing your faith? Do you believe in specific personal values? Are you living up to those personal values? Fun and recreation, do you participate in activities that give you enjoyment? Do you take advantage of recreational opportunities in the locations in which you live? Fitness and health. Do you feel healthy? Do you exercise and eat the way you would like to? These are all important areas for your consideration. So the worksheet would simply go this way. As you go and consider like this person who is in a working career, rating their working career area, notice that they have zero at the center, meaning this is something that I'm not doing at all. And it goes up from there. And it's basically giving yourself a number in each of these areas to pretty much kind of assess where you are. Keep in mind that finding balance does not mean that an equal amount of time or equal number involved in the satisfaction needs to be achieved in all categories. Instead, you would need to determine what works best for you, because understanding what your own balance looks like may help you enjoy roles and responsibilities more fully. So if you had many areas in which you were not satisfied, do not try to work on all of them, at once. Reflect on what those values are, and prioritize them that way. Like, for example, here's someone who completed their will, and you notice that there's some variations in how they rated these different areas of their lives, right? And so if you were to assess this person, it's like, man, there are some areas where they could achieve a little bit more balance depending on what those how they rate those, and maybe areas that they want to see. I want to do a little bit better in some of these areas. How bumpy a ride would it be if this was yours? So if you looked at that wheel and you saw where, man, there are some things that are really good, but then there are some areas that are not so good, and that ride becomes very difficult to push that cart to kind of push through life whenever I'm just kind of on a bumpy ride. Not in terms of having everything even in every area, but in terms of assessing that that wheel of life in a way that makes sense for me in terms of my personal balance. And only you could really determine that for yourselves and for your family, you know. But giving yourself the opportunity to smooth out that ride. And so once we're here, once we decided, hey, I've completed my wheel of life, Captain, and these are the different areas that I've rated myself in, and here's some areas I feel like I can improve in, I can do better in. Having goals can help achieve the desired outcomes. And I know you've heard SMART goals before. It's been around for a while. But written goals can be effective tools because the act of writing down your goals makes them more concrete, which makes it easier for us to commit to them. So you may want to develop both concrete short-term and long-term goals to help you sustain the behaviors you choose to achieve over time. So we want to make sure that those goals are SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant, time bound, to increase those different areas that's on our wheel. So what time frame would you consider long term for goals? What time frame would you consider mid-term? What time frame would you consider for short term? When it comes to like health and fitness, things that I can do specifically that I can measure and achieve that are relevant. Or when it comes to family. So this is, the SMART goal is just the vehicle that we're gonna take to achieve balance in the eight areas that we previously listed. And I also kind of like to throw this in here. Values clarifications. Your values are the beliefs that define what is most important to you. They guide each of your choices in life. For example, someone who values the family might try to spend extra time at home. Values and goal settings. And I know you heard values, value driven goals are those goals that are intrinsically connected to who we are. And it's not just setting those goals based because this is what I'm supposed to do, but if they are intrinsically motivated, I am more likely to be successful at those goals. I remember being in basic training at Air Force, and I know y'all are Army, y'all probably saying the Air Force don't really have a basic training, but we had something like a basic training. And I remember one of the things that we had to do was we had to learn core values: excellence in all we do, service before self, and integrity first. And each time we cross this threshold in our base, in our barracks, we would have to say one of those values. And I thought it was silly at first. I'm like, man, this is silly. But every time I crossed this threshold, I did it anyway. Excellence first, service before self, integrity first, excellence in all I do. And I would say these values. But after a while, I started noticing something, that I started living the values that I was saying to myself. Folks, what are you saying to yourself when it comes to meeting these goals? Are you living your values? Are you saying your values to yourself? And are you living a value driven life? Because that was so important. I didn't realize that the more I said these things to myself, the more I saw them in other areas of my life. Then in basic training, I saw that I tried to be excellent in my fitness, and I tried to be excellent in how I made my bed and how I hung my clothes. I started to put my other, airmen before myself, and I started to consider other people before myself. So all of these things became very important to me. So values clarification is huge and is very helpful in also achieving that balance, and also truly locking in on what those goals are to you and what is the why behind those goals. So here's that handout. So, a SMART goal, of course, is available. That's available for download on the Yellow Ribbon website. You may use the wheel as a measure of balance to gauge your overall degree of satisfaction and to identify areas that might benefit from a goal setting. And like I said before, here's an opportunity. Even if I don't feel like I'm doing extremely well in this area, here's an opportunity to assess that based on what my values are. And so, what we're really trying to do is to change your habits. That's ultimately uh, what we're trying to do. So, if you go to the gym for 3 months, you will probably see a difference in how you feel. It may be easier to maintain that habit of going to the gym for a long time. By making these changes and maintaining them, you may be able to increase the balance in your life. So that's pretty much what this is all about. Um, it's about getting us to the point to where we start to experience the satisfaction and the benefit of having accomplished that goal. And when I do that, that goal is kind of more concretized, if you will. So we spend the majority of our time and journey towards our goal, and only a small amount of our time actually attaining it. So we put a lot of effort into um, moving towards it, but do we actually attain what it is that we're trying? Remember, enjoy the journey, folks. It will make getting your destination more pleasant. When you achieve your goal, give yourself a pat on the shoulders and learn to celebrate. This is very important for me. Celebrating the good is a huge resiliency intervention, and sometimes we often don't do. I kind of tie that into going back to where we start to count gratitude, and we listen, we consider, we say gratitude each day. But it's also about celebrating the goodness, looking at what I've already accomplished, things I've already done. And so here's that way to learn to give yourself that motivation to continue to go forward. So our objectives today, you had the opportunity in this session to do a nice follow on to address your stress by talking about balance. But right, what we wanted to do with these breakouts and these slides was to evaluate your satisfaction in 8 areas of your life to determine which areas might need some more attention. And then you start to create more balance in your life by setting smart goals. As I looked at those 8 areas, I gave them a number. I wanted to increase those numbers in certain areas, so I allowed myself, I established smart goals to work towards attaining those goals in those areas. And working towards those goals can help increase my overall satisfaction and help me to regain focus on what it is that I want to do. Remember, deployments have a way of shaking things up in our lives just a little bit. And here's a way to just kind of refocus on what's important, and less emphasis on the urgent matters and things that gotta get done, and learning how to have that balance. So now, North Carolina Guard, Army Guard, my challenge to you is to go ahead and set 2 or more SMART goals. When you get home or when you're listening to this, write them down. Feel free to share them. Share them on social media. Share them wherever this video is going to be posted. Remember to balance your goals among short, mid, and long term. What questions do you have about finding balance? Um, and being able to list those out and go back and look through some of the worksheets and say, and go back and replay this and listen to areas and ways that I can improve this for myself. And so that is the end of finding balance. At this moment, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Hill. I appreciate all that you do. Thank you all for your service, and really and truly, I hope to present and be invited to share with you all again soon. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your professional presentation. I'll definitely link all of these worksheets right there on the Facebook page for everyone to check out and on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of your time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity.